this Bombardier Beetle does amazing things. It blasts out of its backside. It's got a little turret which can go forwards, sideways, to any creature which wants to eat it. They have this amazing turret which can even come right over and point forward.
Welcome to the Creation Today show, where we bring together interviews with experts and solid Bible teaching. Your host, Eric Hovind, affirms the ultimate authority of God's Word, the truth of creation, and why it matters to you.
Hey guys, I just got done with the Creation Research Society conference, and Professor Andy McIntosh was actually at this event. So good to have you over here.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Every
Eric,
time you
excellent.
come to this side of the pond, we love it. We really do. Professor McIntosh was giving a talk on the Bombardier Beetle.
I was.
And it's just brilliant. It really is. I thought, why don't we talk about the Bombardier Beetle today and just point out the idea that it would be impossible for this little guy to have evolved.
I think
and
so.
That's coming from an engineer's perspective. That's what you've done as engineering, right?
Absolutely.
Professor Andy McIntosh, man, welcome. So tell me real quick, tell us about how much engineering you've done in your life. I mean, you used to teach it, you invented the wheel.
Yes,
tell us about that.
I know I'm old, but not that old. But no, the engineering and mathematics that I've done is actually a bit of a mixture of those two subjects. Started off as a mathematician, but then ended up at the University of Leeds in an engineering department, teaching really thermodynamics and combustion, much more on the theory side, but doing research as well. And then I got wind of this little beetle, and I became interested in the fact that you've got combustion in nature. You've got actually burning in nature. It's not the only example of burning in nature, but it's certainly the big one. And this Bombardier Beetle does amazing things. It blasts out of its backside, as I'm going to tell you. So this beetle has quite extraordinary ability to blast, as you can see on this picture here. It's blasting right over its backside, and it's got a little turret which can go forwards, sideways, to any creature which wants to eat it. Could be a bird, a spider, a frog, or something like that, or an ant, small creature, and it blasts out of it's not passing wind or anything.
Okay, so this isn't digestive.
It's a separate system to its digestive system, and it's found mainly in Africa, but there are other places where it's found. North America does have some.
So we do have some here.
Yeah, you do.
We're in St. Louis right now. What are my chances?
If you go to the foothills of Los Angeles, we found some there. I even took some home with me, and I started sort of playing around with them, had a few.
So you literally would make them like a little boom.
And they'd be in the sand and rocks, and we gave them water. And they did blast for a while, but in the end, we couldn't keep them forever. They don't last for that long, but they were quite funny.
A little pet Bombardier Beetle.
Yeah,
That's really
we did.
Cool.
And then we had them, we've realized that they are also in Europe, south of England, but they're always under rocks and close to water. And they have, as I say, this amazing, you can see it on the screen, but they have this amazing turret which can even come right over it and point forward, as I showed you earlier. Bit like a tank with its movable turret. But
literally spin that thing around.
But the turret can actually come right over and point forwards.
So even mechanically, that is really impressive.
Yeah, it is.
Especially when you realize the amount of power that's coming out of this turret and what it's capable of doing.
Exactly. Let me show you a little video of the Bombardier Beetle, which I took in Tom Eisner's laboratory in Cornell University. So I'll just play you this.
Oh, you heard that.
That's what you actually hear in the laboratory.
Just a pop.
You hear a pop. And it's a blast going at a fair distance for the beetle. The beetle's about 1 to 2 centimeters long.
Okay.
And it can go, the blast can go to easily 20 centimeters.
So that'd be like me sneezing and hitting that door over there. Like that's a pretty good blast.
Well, when you consider that the actual chamber is only about 1 millimeter long.
Whew.
So it's going from 1 millimeter to 20 centimeters. So it's a throw ratio of about 200. So that's
really good.
That's pretty powerful. So if I now play another video, this is from a BBC film,
okay.
Alien Empire. It's just a clip to give you some idea. They slowed it down a bit, but you get a sense of the power of what's coming out of the Beetle.
Few creatures will risk annoying a Bombardier Beetle. It mixes a cocktail of deadly chemicals in a special chamber. They react and explode at boiling point from its rear end in an awesome chemical weapon.
So that really gives you a sense of what's going on. They've slowed it down a bit so you could hear that.
Yeah, I feel it's like firecrackers when you light the whole string of firecrackers. And it's boom,
Now,
boom, 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 boom.
That sound particularly became evident when they played it back at very low speed. They realized, Tom Eisner and his laboratory in Cornell University, which is where that was filmed by the BBC, they realized that there was a series of explosions. So let me play you these two video clips, because then you'll really get a sense of what the Beetle is doing. Tom Eisner has sadly died now, but he was a very brilliant biologist, and he was really just systematically trying to work out what the Beetle was actually doing.
One of the really amazing things about this animal is its ability to spray in a very beautifully aimed fashion. And that shows up very nicely when you put the animal on indicator paper. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pinch very lightly one leg after the other, just as if I were an ant biting these legs. I'm going to start with the right hind leg.
Look at that.
Right front leg. Left front leg.
Whoa.
At 400 frames per second, the action has been slowed down, but not enough to see the individual pulses. So they went to a lab and filmed the Beetle at an even faster speed, at an incredible 4,000 frames a second.
4,000. Look at that.
So when you go for 4,000 frames a second, you can then roughly work out how many times per second
There were the pulses,
blasts are.
each one corresponding to the individual bursts of sound.
It's roughly 10 frames per blast, we reckoned. So it's about 400 per second in terms of blast. About 400 per second. Now 400 per second is, well, 256 is middle C on the piano.
Okay.
A is 440 cycles per second. So that's why when you disturb the Beetle, it makes a ee. And it's making literally a note. A frequency on the piano, which you could imagine. So actually that's what put Tom Eisner onto the fact that because it was a pure note, there must be a vibration corresponding to that note.
So that's why he went, let's slow this thing down, because there's got to be a bunch of them happening.
Exactly.
So you're hearing a frequency.
So that was pretty clever.
That
was clever of him to do it. Now, this shows you the diagram of what the Beetle looks like when you blow up the combustion chamber, which is at its backside. There's actually two combustion chambers, and you've got two valves here. It's not obvious until you look at this picture a bit more closely. You've got an inlet valve here, and you've got an exhaust valve there. Wow. So you've got a whole set of inlet tubes, because he's had to cut away here. You can't see the tubes very well. But those are pinched under high pressure. And this, I said to Tom Eister, what's this? It looks like you've cut through the exhaust tube. He says, no, I haven't. That's what is actually sitting there. You've actually got a bit of a membrane, really, just sitting on a tube, which is closed, and then the tube opens if that membrane lifts under pressure. So that which is high pressure due to the burning inside here, which I'll talk to you about in a moment, that closes the inlet tube and it opens the exhaust tube. So what you've got here, if you've got this diagram, you've got the membrane sitting on the exhaust tube like that, and that's closed. Then that lifts up under pressure. Now that was really quite a finding. We then realized that there was these two valves, an inlet valve and an exhaust valve.
And the inlet being closer to the front of the Beetle where it injects the fluids,
Yes.
injects the chemicals.
Yes.
And then once those heat, that outlet valve is opening to allow the escape.
Exactly. So this is another diagram which shows you that there needs to be a catalyst in the chamber, which is what is marked on here. There are enzymes, catalase and peroxidase. And when the inlet material comes in, which is it's inlet reactants, I should say, hydroquinone, which is not a fuel you put into your car.
Yeah, I've
but
never
it is
used
a
that.
hydrocarbon.
Oh,
It is a hydrocarbon. So that is being mixed with hydrogen peroxide. Now, hydrogen peroxide easily liberates an oxygen, right? If you had pure hydrogen peroxide on its own would just eat everything on the table.
Wow.
You know, pure hydrogen peroxide is very dangerous. But just a weak solution of hydrogen peroxide can be used as a cleaning fluid in the home, and people do use it like that as a bleach. So hydrogen peroxide wants to liberate an oxygen. The hydroquinone wants to actually not easily be separated. But if there's enough heat, then the hydroquinone liberates a hydrogen. So then you've got hydrogen and oxygen combining together, which produces quite a big explosion. And that's what I'm now going to show you. So you need to just bear with me as I just play this, because I'm going to play you effectively what happens after the blast, which you can see here, closes the inlet and then opens the exhaust valve. So this is the inlet valve. I'm going to play you a video to illustrate this. The inlet valve closes, and under pressure, the same pressure which closes the inlet valve, that opens the exhaust valve. This is all passive in the Beetle.
It's not making this happen. It just does.
It's not. What we copied was to do this actively. That we decided when we were going to close this. This closes passively under pressure. So as the burning takes place, the pressure goes up because the hydroquinone and the hydrogen peroxide combine together in the presence of a catalyst. And that then closes the inlet valve and opens the exhaust valve. You've heard of the V1?
Yes.
The V1 was powered by the same principle.
You're literally hearing the brrrr.
Yeah, because it was a series of gasoline explosions in air. It wasn't hydroquinone. But the V1 Doodlebug in the Second World War then ran out of fuel and then made its explosion, as you could hear, as it landed in England and attacked us. So many people died as a result of these horrible weapons. But they were powered by gasoline burning in air. But it was really sounded like a motorbike because it was a series of explosions. But
not running a typical V8 engine type thing. It's literally, that's the exhaust of the explosion.
Yeah,
just
and
boom,
it's
boom,
a
boom,
series
boom, boom,
of
boom.
explosions, very much like the Bombardier Beetle. Wow. But the Bombardier Beetle is not being propelled, although it does.
It's got to hold itself down.
It's got to hold itself down because there is a bit of a reaction force.
So if it wasn't holding itself down, it could blow itself kind of
it'd be shoved a bit.
Okay.
But it's actually moving stuff out of its backside, a bit like a jet aircraft. So there is actually
a little bit of thrust.
You've really got a machine gun coming out of its backside, or you've got a series of explosions coming out. So it's not just one, you've actually got a repeated set of them. That's what's going on with the Bombardier Beetle. It's many explosions, as many as 400 to 500 per second.
That is fast.
And the Beetle does this for about maybe 4 or 5 seconds. So that could be as many, as I say, of maybe 2,000,
wow,
3,000 blasts. And then it's got 2 combustion chambers, so maybe the other combustion chamber will do some more, and then eventually it will run out. But it doesn't run out very quickly. It can usually do it for quite a good amount of time. So remember that there is chemistry for the Beetle. There is chemistry involved. Right. We haven't copied the chemistry, but just let me give you...
We know what it is, though.
Yeah, we do know what it is.
Okay.
This gets a bit complicated because I put actually the formula up here.
Of course.
But
I thought that's what it was.
Hydroquinone,
yes.
Hydrogen peroxide, goes to benzoquinone, and there is water released as well. This is actually not totally all those chemicals. You've actually got this in about 3/4 by volume of water. So 75% of it is water. The other 25% is these 2 chemicals.
And this beetle can literally just make that inside of its body.
It's coming down through tubes,
right,
which are carrying both chemicals at once, but they don't react because they need a catalyst in order to react. So they're fed into the combustion chamber, and then the catalyst causes them to react together.
Wow.
And then that heats up the remaining amount of water. So it's hot water wanting to boil. It's really a vapor explosion. So you've got hydrogen peroxide and hydroquinone coming in the presence of these catalysts, catalase and peroxidase, then that produces that explosion. Now, the reason I've put here catalysis 101 is that there was a certain person by the name of Richard Dawkins.
Yes, sir.
Who didn't seem to understand catalysis 101 because he actually did a talk in 1991 to a number of children at that time. So it's going way back, we're going 34 years ago. And it's a much younger Richard Dawkins. And you're going to see in this video that he dismisses the hydroquinone as not relevant. Actually, it is relevant because the catalysis that's going on, the catalytic chemistry, it enables not only to get the hydrogen peroxide going with a nice liberation of the oxygen, but that also begins to supply sufficient heat to make the hydroquinone lose one of its hydrogens. Now you've got a free hydrogen and oxygen, and you know that hydrogen and oxygen want to get together, and they give off a lot of heat when they combine together. So what he was missing is that the hydroquinone is important. So this is, as I said, his lectures at Christmas to the Royal Institute, in the Royal Institution to children. And he was trying to say, I'll play the video in a moment, he was trying to say that the Bombardier Beetle can be explained by just gradual changes over millions of years in his view.
In fact, the hydroquinone does nothing at all. We can put that on one side. The true story is that hydrogen peroxide on its own does decompose to form oxygen and water, but it needs a catalyst under normal conditions to do that. This black powder here is a catalyst. It's not the catalyst that the Bombardier Beetle uses. The Bombardier Beetle does use a catalyst, and it does, in fact, squirt this hot substance into the face of its enemy. But if you put a catalyst into a weak solution of hydrogen peroxide, then you're going to get a little bit of bubbling, and it's a little bit warm. That might have some effect on the predator. That might slightly deter a predator, and it would be not particularly dangerous to the beetle. Now we've got a smooth gradient, a bit more concentration of hydrogen peroxide, and that's distinctly warm. That would work more effectively against a predator. And by moving gradually up the slope, gradually increasing the concentration of hydrogen peroxide, we can end up with...
Wow.
So there is a smooth slope all the way up to the effective deterrent against a predator.
But he was missing the hydroquinone.
Yeah.
That looked good, but actually it's not the blast of the beetle. The blast of the beetle is much more powerful than that.
Because it's not just using the hydrogen peroxide.
It's not just the hydrogen peroxide. You need the hydrogen from the hydroquinone to combine with the oxygen of the hydrogen peroxide, and then you get a really big explosion, which he ignored. And in fact, I was at Liberty University, and I had a friend there, Garth Hewitt, one of the lecturers at the time. He's retired now. But I went to see him and just asked him about the hydroquinone. And he showed me what really happens when you put a catalyst for the hydroquinone, because the catalyst is there. He's right, Dawkins was right, that you do need a catalyst to get the hydrogen peroxide going, but you also need the catalyst for the purpose of the hydroquinone. Let me just play
I'm
you
going to
this.
guess it's a lot bigger than what...
It's much bigger.
Than what Richard Dawkins just showed us, okay.
So let me just play you this.
Drop it straight down the center.
Now, I'll explain in a moment.
Yep. That was a platinum catalyst.
Platinum catalyst.
And now it's your quinones formed. See, that's orange?
Yes, that's the orange. Thank you for showing me this, Garth. This is excellent.
I bet that's pretty hot.
It's both hot.
Yeah, that orange there would be your benzoquinone. The bottom orangey color.
So what he's showing is that the reaction is much stronger than just the hydrogen peroxide. He has a mixture there of the hydrogen peroxide and the hydroquinone. He then puts the platinum catalyst in. That then causes both of them to get going, particularly the hydrogen peroxide. That is what we call exothermic.
Right.
That will, as Dawkins rightly said, that will liberate an oxygen, and it's just oxygen and water that you get. But what he missed is that the oxygen then combines with hydrogen, which comes from the hydroquinone, and the hydroquinone takes a little bit heat away, right? It's actually what we call an endothermic reaction. But overall, there is much more energy given out because it liberates the hydrogen, then the hydrogen combines with the oxygen, and bang, you've got a really big, as you could see, there was a really strong reaction. So the reactions are here. Actually, I split it into 3 steps. Actually, in reality, if you were to do this chemically and properly, you would have probably as many as 50, 60, maybe 100 steps.
And all that's
happening. True for all reactions, by the way.
Okay.
This is just simplified, just so that you can see what's going on. This gets a bit complicated, but this is the big reaction, right, which produces a lot of energy. I've highlighted it there in yellow, okay? Mm-hmm. This is the reaction which Dawkins was quite rightly saying, sorry, no, I beg your pardon. This reaction, right, that's the reaction which he missed. This second one, hydrogen peroxide, is the one that he thought was just enough. But as you can see, it produces about 100 kilojoules per mole. Yep. But when you've got everything going, right, the overall reaction, this is adding up these figures, is about twice as much as what he was saying. It's about 200 kilojoules per mole. And as I indicated, this first reaction doesn't get going on its own. It needs heat. It actually, that plus indicates that it's got to take heat in, right? It takes heat in and it liberates hydrogen, which then gives you this very big reaction. So overall, you've got about 200, just over 200 kilojoules per mole. So these were the reactions that Dawkins missed.
Wow.
And he wasn't really telling the whole story. Let me tell you what we did copy then. We actually didn't mimic the chemistry. I'll wait for another
Is that
person.
because it's too complicated, or is it because...
Well, it's just that
or it's like it's expensive to get that chemistry?
It's just that it's very, very difficult to copy that chemistry. You don't usually mess about with hydrogen peroxide. Really, we were interested in heating the water. How we heated the water could easily be done with electricity. We decided to do it that way. But I will say this, that I'm interested in the production of hydrogen peroxide, which this beetle does in small amounts just when it needs it. And that could be of use to industry. But I haven't yet found somebody who's prepared to work on this as a PhD. I would like to see it done, though, where they work out how does this beetle produce just small amounts of hydrogen peroxide, because you need a great big chemical process, vats and everything in industry to produce hydrogen peroxide today. So some people would be interested in that, but we didn't do that. We copied just simply the valve system of the Beetle.
Oh.
Now, this is a computer fluid dynamics model of what the Beetle is doing. We estimated the volume and treated it like a cylinder, right? This is just an eighth of the cylinder, right? And you've got here the radius, which is 0.3 of a millimeter. So we estimated that it's very, very small, this chamber, and there's a tiny little tube coming off. So we had to just estimate this, that it could be as small as about 50 microns or 100, which
That
is
is
about
tiny.
Yeah, it is tiny. It's about possibly 0.1 of a millimeter, 1/10 of a millimeter wide. We don't know actually how wide that is. That's not been measured. We had to make some assumptions about the flow. And then you'll see that it's blue here for cold, red here for hot, and we're going to see that there is an ejection from left to right. We're going to have a clock on as I set this going.
Nice.
Which will show that all the ejection comes out in about, it's ejecting water and steam. Basically, it wants to boil. There's no chemistry here. We're just simply saying this is water, which is just above 100 degrees centigrade. It wants to boil. It can't boil until there is a release of the valve here, and then it will all come out. So watch this. Okay, you've got a clock at the top right here, and it's measuring milliseconds. We've up to now 1 millisecond, and it's going to take roughly 3 milliseconds to get all the water and the steam. The steam is the brown and the red, maybe a bit of the yellow. Dark blue is cold. This is fairly cool. So a lot of it is coming out, and most of it's come out by about 3 milliseconds.
Wow.
So that means that it's about 300 of these, roughly 300 of these blasts are represented by this CFD program. So it's a simulation.
Yeah.
We did this simulation to see, could I get a lot of the mixture of water and steam out quickly? And you can when it's under pressure. So then we built a rig with the courtesy of a gentleman from a company called Swedish Biomimetics 3000. He
sounds like he knows what he's talking about with this.
He decided to bankroll this work for a while and paid for the equipment, and he also paid for taking patents out on this. And this is a 2 centimeter chamber, We've got an inlet valve for water, an exhaust valve for water here, and a return valve just in case things go wrong. So we've got an emergency valve.
It felt like it was covered, yeah.
Yeah. So this is approximately 2 centimeters, about 20 times the 1 millimeter chamber of the Bombardier Beetle. This is what we got.
Wow.
Now, this is blasting using the principle of the 2 valves. We are closing off actively the inlet valve, and we are opening actively the exhaust valve, and we're deciding the time.
So I'm listening to that, and I'm hearing, am I hearing like a bunch of...
You're hearing a bunch of explosions, what we call vapor explosions. This looks like a very sophisticated receptacle. It's basically a trash can.
You're spraying into a trash can. Okay,
trash can. So, and this is a laser, what's called a Malvern laser, which is just measuring the droplet sizes of this spray. So we actually developed this over a few years, and we eventually got it such that it's much more sophisticated and blasting 100 to 200 times per second. So here it is doing it with a very fine spray.
Wow.
So, and here's another example of it. So we were very pleased with that. Now, we are intending to build this again over here in Virginia at the University, Liberty University in Lynchburg. And our intention is to not use it for fuel injectors, because this has been done it's been done for diesel engines, injecting not the fuel, but injecting an additive called AdBlue.
Okay,
it's actually being used for that purpose now. And the patent was taken out, and people have had to pay money to the company Swedish Biomimetics, and to a certain extent the university I was at, and myself as patent holders. So we had some people quite interested in it for that. Could be used for medical sprays and fragrances, but the application we're going to be going for at Liberty is for a fire, not a fire extinguisher, but a fire sprinkler system. If you've got particularly new buildings these days, they have these these sprinklers which will automatically spray and douse the whole room with water. Well, if you could have a one which was targeting just where the heat is coming from,
that's a good idea.
Then you
don't destroy everything.
You don't destroy everything. It is suppressing a fire as against putting out a fire which is already existing. So think of sprinklers as a precautionary measure to stop a fire developing. So we could talk about the huge features of the Bombardier Beetle, the catalytic chemistry, the timed inlet and exhaust valves, the controlled vapor explosion, and the sensory mechanism it's got for where the attack's coming from. I haven't talked about that, but it's got some sort of sensory mechanism in order to make the turret go in the right direction. And it can do it without looking at the predator. It knows where the attack's coming from. And it's got the production of chemicals as well, and the fact that it can maintain this for 2 or 3 seconds. I'll miss that. But so what really this is showing to me is that there is a lot that can be learned from the Beetle itself, and it did lead to a prize. This led to a prize for outstanding contribution to innovation and technology.
Wow.
So we were very pleased by that in 2010.
You just stole God's design. That's pretty cool, man. I like this. So, hey, God, thank you.
Now, let me just come to the end here that I've talked about the remarkable features of the Beetle, which itself shows design. But now if we're thinking of applications of this, I've already mentioned that we particularly want to apply it to fire sprinklers. We have applied it not to fuel injectors, but to additives injected into diesel engines, because the advantage is that you can control the spray droplet size, and you don't have to atomize the additive. You don't have to push it through a disc with holes in. You actually do it by heating it and then spraying it, and out comes different droplet sizes depending how high you heat it, what the orifice size is of the outlet exhaust valve. There is lots of features which we can alter for that. Now, we're wanting to apply it to a fire sprinkler. Well, we don't need to have the fire sprinkler very big. It's nothing like a fire extinguisher. We did try to do this for fire extinguishers, but you need too much energy to heat up the water, and it didn't work. But we think that it will work for fire sprinklers, where you're dealing with a much smaller size, about 2 centimeters or so. The power required is smaller, and you only need to generate a small amount of heat to heat up the water. We're not going to heat it using internal capsule heaters. We're going to heat the water using an induction coil going round the
So you're going to have to have
chamber.
electricity powering this
Yes.
in
Now,
order for it to...
Yeah, and electricity is going to be available
In the building anyway, right.
on the building, or it could be particularly valuable for submarines, where you don't want to be carrying a lot of extra water, and you certainly don't want to be using seawater. Yes, you're surrounded by water, but you actually need pure water for this, fresh water, and you don't want to be. If you want, you need to use water efficiently, because you don't want to be carrying a huge amount of weight, which is going to
Correct.
alter the way the submarine is going to operate. And in a space vehicle, especially, water is very precious.
So when you have a smaller space, a building, it doesn't matter if we're in here and there's a fire sprinkler system, you're hooked into city water, no big deal. You got an unlimited supply.
Exactly.
Here you're talking limited supply.
Yeah, but even in the building, you don't want to be dousing the whole room necessarily with
That's
water.
true.
You just want to
Right where
put
that
some
fire's
water on where there's a danger emerging. So that's what we
And that
think.
valve is based on the Bombardier's
Yeah,
Beetle's
that
butt.
would be based on the Bombardier Beetle's
Wow.
butt, I should say. So this is a little few photos of what we're developing.
You're working on it right now.
Yeah, this is at Lynchburg at Liberty University. And these kids were pretty successful. They didn't quite finish it off, but they did very well. In 1 year, there was 4 students. They got on very well. They numerically designed these components. Not all of them, but some of them were bought off the shelf. But they designed the chamber, and they designed the control board system. It's called an Arduino board.
How hard is that valve? How hard is that valve to make that the Bombardier Beetle?
Well, no, they didn't make the valves. They bought those valves. They're called Peter Paul valves
So that
off the
valve is
shelf.
big. Okay.
Yeah, but they did very well in actually putting it all together. Then they got a control board, which I haven't shown on that picture, where you have all these components operated by software called Simulink, which controls when the valves go on and off and so on. So there's a computer-controlled system here, as well as a control board where it's a bit like the motherboard of a computer, where all these components are put in place. So there is a lot goes on here in making this work. We did get it working after a fashion, but there's more to be done on it. And we're looking for a master's student to actually take this work on. So if anybody knows of someone who would like to donate to this work, because we're looking for the support of about $30,000 a year for 2 years for a student, please could they contact Creation Today, and Eric will pass it on.
I was to say, you can go right to Dr. McIntosh, go to me, or is it because it's here in the States it needs to stay here?
I think it's all got to stay here.
Okay.
And if you don't mind, if people are interested, they can then send to you.
Absolutely.
And you can talk to me, and I can direct those donations
to the students.
To
the
well,
researcher.
it'll go to Liberty University eventually.
Wow.
but it will go through an organization who is trying to fund this.
That is fantastic. My goodness. So when I think of the Bombardier Beetle, I mean, you're here sitting, making a valve system, making a fire system, a sprinkler system based on the Bombardier Beetle. This is taking a lot of engineering just to get the Bombardier, just to get the concept up and running.
It is.
And yet the evolution worldview says the Beetle did it without any engineering. No blind chance.
In the Bible, Eric, it says in Colossians 1, by him were all things created, that are in heaven, that are in earth. This beetle's basically in the earth, really. Visible and invisible, whether there be thrones, dominions, principalities, powers, all things were created by him and for him, including little beetles.
Wow.
They give glory to God. Did you know that there is another beetle called the dung beetle, which rolls dung?
I've seen those.
Always in the same direction, and it's guided by the galaxy of the Milky Way at night.
Whoa. And
it knows which direction it's meant to go in, right? Because it wants to keep in the same direction. I mean, it's an amazing beetle again. But what I'm saying is, there's a beetle which is using stars light years away
in order to
navigate. This beetle that I've been talking about today does this amazing blasting system, and of course it gives glory to God. By him all things consist, Colossians 1:18.
Yeah.
And I just want to point out that he is the creator, and everything gives glory to Christ especially. And it says in John 1 verse 3, without him was not anything made that was made. So although I'm stressing the design argument, let me just say to you, some people say to me, well, if everything is designed, then, why has everything gone wrong? Well, because of the fall, which is what I've put in here. There are weaknesses in using a design argument, because although I believe this Bombardier Beetle is designed, you might well ask, well, why is it that it blasts its predator?
It can burn them.
And it can burn them. It could even possibly kill some ants. It generally stuns them. Well, as I've put here, the weaknesses of the design argument, we need to remember that God didn't have things made exactly as they are now. We don't believe in the fixity of species. There can be changes within species. And it could well be that God didn't make the Bombardier Beetle exactly as it is now.
Wow.
Or else it was using that blast for another purpose, for softening up some vegetation.
Yeah, steam is veggies.
Yeah,
I like that.
Steamy veggies.
We can have steamed veggies.
Steamed veggies, that's a good way of putting it. And that's why I put secondly that the world is not what it once was.
Right.
What was the cause of that, Eric? It was Adam's sin.
Sin is into the world, and death by sin.
And Adam.
Now the whole creation is groaning and travailing in pain together and somehow.
You got it.
Yeah.
So Adam, our forefather, sinned. And we need to remember that. And of course, Christ died on the cross that we might be forgiven. He took my sin upon himself.
Yes.
While we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Which then leads me to a third point, that predator-prey relationships that we have today weren't there in the way they are today, because there weren't any predator-prey relationships, because it says God saw all that he had made, Genesis 1 verse 31, God saw all that he had made, and behold, it was very good. So we need to be aware of this. If we're going to use this design argument of the Bombardier Beetle, your listeners, your viewers need to be aware that there are traps that they could fall into with a clever atheist who doesn't accept what we're saying about the Bible. I believe the Bible.
Yeah.
God has given us his book. So you need both the design argument and the Bible, and then you can see how to reason with people. So when David Attenborough, with his lovely films that he does for the BBC in his 90s now, but when he was written to about design by Christians, rather naively saying, why don't you believe? You say, well, how can I believe when killer whales, they play with seals before they eat them? Well, it is rather nasty seeing all these things. Of course, he's right in a sense, because he's thinking, well, you naive person, if you believe in God, did he make a world full of that sort of predator-prey relationship? Well, the answer is, of course, he didn't make the world like that. We have to say, David, the world wasn't originally like this. But Adam, our forefather, your forefather, David, brought sin into the world, and God cursed the earth. And God changed the world, so it brought forth literally thorns and thistles, which weren't there before. Serpents now going on the ground as snakes. And all these things happened after the fall. So when we see that, then we see that we're the ones responsible for bringing sin into the world. But Christ has died for us on the cross. And of course, we believe that the whole creation, as you quoted earlier, groans, waiting for the day of redemption when Christ is going to return and to reverse the curse. The curse for sin for us fell upon Christ.
Yeah.
Temporarily, it fell upon the world, the earth, and it's like a Damocles sword will come on us if we don't repent and turn to Christ for our salvation. So in his mercy allowed Adam a bit of a reprieve. The curse didn't fall upon him immediately, it fell on the ground. But of course, if we don't believe, sons and daughters of Adam, we will be in hell forever unless we believe in Christ, who took the curse for sin for us.
You got a great book, Genesis for Today.
I do. I haven't got it with me, but it's on the screen.
And ironically, you just gave your last one away to
I
a
did.
couple we were talking to today. Very kind of you. Just a couple that's only been in church for a couple months, and we're here filming at the Calvary Chapel in St. Louis. But a beautiful place, beautiful pastor, and beautiful people here learning about the Word of God. And they said, when they heard this science, we didn't do the Bombardier talk, but when we went through some of the science, when people hear this information, they're just kind of blown away about who God actually is. They're just like, wow, God, what a genius designer, what an amazing creator he truly is.
Amen.
Even though we're looking at a cursed creation.
Amen.
And I think at the Bombardier Beetle, not only does it have to have the ability to make these chemicals, get a chamber that can fire these chemicals, get a chamber that won't get eroded and eaten away by these chemicals. It was sitting there spraying its own legs. Its own body has to be immune to these chemicals. And I just go, Doc, this is incredible.
Yeah.
Even if this is the result of the fall, this is incredible design. And everywhere we look around us, we see incredible design.
I've listed it here. You may want to put this up, but you've got I mean, what you said is absolutely right, but just putting a little bit more science to it, you've got precise catalytic chemistry. You've got precise timed inlet and exhaust valves. You've got a controlled vapor explosion. You've got a sensory mechanism, not just with its eyes, if it's coming for a frontal attack, obviously it can see the spider coming to it, or the wolf spider, but supposing it's coming from behind, it somehow knows and can sense. It's probably a pheromone, which it's sensing, a bit of smell.
Which means it has to have a sense organism.
Yeah, exactly.
They can.
And then it's got this movable turret, and of course the production of hydrogen peroxide and hydroquinone, but there is a special series of tubes down which the chemistry comes, the reactants come. And unless you've got those reactants, you're not going to actually get any explosion. So you've got to get the reactants into the combustion chamber. And all these things have to be right, as you clearly said.
So if those aren't right, Beetle dies, doesn't evolve, we don't get it today.
Yeah, or else it blasts itself to bits because it hasn't got a controlled explosion. So you're between a rock and a hard place, literally.
Either it does no good or it blows itself up,
yes.
Unless it's designed exactly right. It's got to be just right. Yeah. Oh, man. And this is just one of the things that you've studied. You've studied bird feathers. How many different How many? Well, obviously there's no stopping. But how many different things have you studied?
Well, I have looked at flight, and I am amazed at.
You got your feathers here.
Yes,
Look
I got
at
my
that.
feather. I don't know whether we're going to do something on the feather.
No, we'll just
yeah,
mention it.
Yeah, just mention it here. But I'll just mention this. This image is what you see down an electron microscope. Sorry, not an electron, just a very powerful microscope. You see what I'm now going to show you. A feather, this is a buzzard primary feather, and this feather has a remarkable mechanism which you can only see at the micro scale, but if you really get the camera focused on this feather, you can just see that it's very furry on either side of the barbs here of this feather.
Wow.
Now, if I put my finger and thumb over this feather...
You literally zipped it back up.
Well, almost, yeah. I've zipped it back together again. Right? Now that seems like
on the
magic.
Microscopic level.
Yeah, and this is what's happening. This is now visible on the screen, or you may be able to see it on the camera. This is not the same feather. This is a magpie secondary, but that doesn't matter. Here is the main stem of the feather. We call that the rachis, right?
Okay.
That's this. This is the barbs, right, which I was talking to you about here. I'm separating the barbs. And then, if you look at the picture here, you've got barbules, left-handed, as you're coming away from the rachis, the stem. These are left-handed with hooks, and the right-handed, well, you can't see these unless you go really blow them up on the microscope here, right? Wow. You can see these have got hooks on. These are barbules. These are not barbs. That's barbules. And these barbules have ridges on. These are what I just said were the left-handed going over the right-handed ones, which have ridges. So back to that picture. This is the left-handed with hooks on going over the barbules, which are right-handed, which have ridges on.
So you literally have to have a left-handed and a right-handed on that little bitty tiny scale.
Exactly. That is why I got fascinated with feathers, because this is made of keratin, like the fingernails that I used to have and the hair that I used to have, right? It's true that scales are made of keratin, but for people to say that the scales of something like a dinosaur changed into feathers is nonsense, because feathers grow from underneath skin, and they grow from a follicle. I'll just briefly show you that. Here it is. They grow from a follicle, and they grow inside a tube, right?
Okay, beautiful, wow.
And then once the follicle's been used, then this is from a pigeon feather, and you can see there that which is reflecting is the tube.
Okay.
So it's a bit like a Bic pen. So the feather is growing in a tube, growing in a tube, the follicle, and then as it grows, it comes out and it's placed carefully on the right place. Every single feather of the hundreds, sometimes thousands of feathers that birds have is different from its neighbor.
Oh my goodness.
No two feathers are the same on any given bird, right? This is again a primary feather. It's heavily asymmetric. I'm not sure which creature that came from, but the point I'm making here is that it's got to grow in a separate follicle, right? So I've got two.
You've got to have another pen.
So you've got to have another one, and we'll take it out and put another feather in. And you put another feather in here, because as these two are growing, right, you don't want the feathers to interrupt with each other. So, so as the feathers grow, as you could see on this picture, they've got them there. Then these are not interrupting each other until they are fully out, right? Basically, I'm saying that they're growing with the follicle, and once they are sorted in the right place, then the follicle just crumbles away. It's very, this tube is terribly thin. This is thick.
Right.
So obviously it's only an illustration. But that just crumbles away. And then the feather is in the right place and it hasn't interrupted each other. So that's the reason that feathers grow in follicles. Now the follicles are little tubes which themselves are fed by oxygen and nutrients. So the follicle is what actually is causing the feather to grow inside. And the growth collar at the bottom is, if you like, connected to flesh. But the feather is not connected directly to flesh. We only feel a hair tug because it's connected to the flesh at the bottom. So there's no flesh in the hair, right? So a feather can actually fall out, and it does from birds. But the point I'm making is that a feather has a definite structure which is different to a hair, and it's different to a scale. So where do feathers come from? They don't come from the scale of dinosaurs, which are in a totally different arrangement. Yes, they're both made of keratin, but that's like saying an aeroplane's made of aluminium. Well, it's not usually aluminium these days, but you know what I'm saying, made of metal. And a car's made of metal. It doesn't mean that a car has evolved into an aeroplane. It just means that the designers have decided to use the same material.
Same chemical makeup,
So big deal.
And isn't it the feather and the scale, they grow from, like it's different genetic information. The genes are in different spots to grow one or the other?
They will be. I'm not a geneticist, but the information for growing a feather will be certainly in the genome of a bird. And there'll be another genome for reptiles like dinosaurs, supposedly the ancestors of birds. I don't believe that for a moment. But there is information in the genome of dinosaurs or lizards, which is basically what you're talking about, which builds scales, and may even you sometimes get mutations which fray scales. But even if you had frayed scales,
that's not a feather.
That's never going to be a feather, because a feather has this structure. It's structure, it's information. There is no evolution of feathers.
Wow.
Feathers hang together using this incredible structure. So it's not in the beginning was matter, it's in the beginning was information.
Bingo.
And information comes from a mind, and the mind is the mind, of course, of the Lord himself.
Evolution would claim, well, some things branched off. You wouldn't get this fine, perfectly designed organism by trial and chance.
No.
Especially when, if you fail, it doesn't survive.
No.
It just doesn't work.
You just get lots of half-grown frayed scales, which are no use both to the lizard and no use to a bird. I mean, it's got to be designed. I do a whole talk on this, but if you've got a wing, you need a control surface.
Yeah.
You don't just need the wing on one side. It's no use having a wing on that side and not having it on the other. You can fly. Well, we could too heavy anyway. You need to cut your weight down. Yeah. But you also need a tail to give you longitudinal stability, as well as control surfaces to give you sideways controllability. Yeah. So if you watch on an aircraft when it's turning, it actually cambers a wing more on one side than the other. Well, that's what the Wright brothers did in the golden age of the development of flight. These days, what they do is they have ailerons which go down on one side and go up on the other.
And help it.
Right, which then tilts the plane. And of course, the rudder at the back is yawing the plane, so that turns it in the right way. And it's a very smooth motion. But you've got to have control of flight. You can't just do flight anyhow.
Landing is important. It's every aspect. Not only do you have to be able to get up, you got to be able to get back down.
Exactly. It's usually the getting down where the problem is. Recently, there's been a terrible accident where an aircraft was taking off and crashed. But I mean, Basically, all these are very dangerous movements unless you've got control.
Wow, that didn't just happen. An engineer telling us about the glory of God through the design of the Bombardier Beetle, feathers, and you've studied all kinds of stuff. It's really quite remarkable. Thank you for using your brain.
It's lovely to come.
And share about the glory of God.
I must admit, it's much better to do it this way than doing it through your whatever it's called.
We tried Riverside.
Riverside.
We tried a couple times.
Ditch the Riverside in the river.
Just come over to it. Come across the pond. We'll hang
just
out.
Ditch it. Just forget it.
It worked great for everybody else. We need to see what's going on with your computer.
There is nothing to do with my computer.
Your computer
it's
needs
your
to evolve.
Software. Which
your computer needs to evolve.
Your
a little
software.
more.
You need to get better software. But anyway, other than that, it's been great to be on your program.
Thank you, Professor
Thank you.
McIntosh.
No,
what
it's
a
lovely.
privilege. Hey, guys, God's world is incredibly designed. Yes, there are those that refuse to see. That should not stop you from going and sharing with them the truth. Let's be about our Father's business. Go into all the world and preaching the gospel to every creature. God bless.